Maya Thompson stood outside the grand entrance of the luxurious penthouse, her heart racing in a mix of excitement and anxiety. The shimmering lights of New York City twinkled against the night sky, casting a glamorous glow over the bustling streets below. She adjusted the strap of her elegant, deep blue dress, a color that complemented her rich brown skin, and took a deep breath. This was her first time attending such a high-profile event, and while she was thrilled to be there, she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. As she stepped into the lavishly decorated foyer, her senses were overwhelmed by the opulence surrounding her. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their light reflecting off the polished marble floors. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, mingling with the soft notes of a string quartet playing in the background. Maya smiled, taking a moment to appreciate the beauty of the event, but she soon felt the weight of several pairs of eyes on her. A group of guests nearby exchanged whispers, their glances darting in her direction. Maya's stomach twisted. She could hear snippets of their conversation, punctuated by laughter that felt sharp and unwelcoming. Who invited her? One woman asked, her voice tinged with disdain. She doesn't belong here, another replied, and Maya's heart sank. She could feel their judgment like a physical presence, a reminder of the prejudice that often lurked beneath the surface of high society. Don't let them get to you, she whispered to herself, recalling the words of her husband, Marcus, who always encouraged her to rise above the negativity. He would be arriving shortly, she reminded herself, and together they would navigate the evening. Maya took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders as she pushed through the crowd, searching for a friendly face. Moments later, she spotted Claire Anderson, the host of the evening, gliding through the crowd with an air of confidence. Claire was a well-known socialite, her reputation for exclusivity preceding her. She was impeccably dressed in a designer gown that shimmered under the lights, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled. As Claire approached, a forced smile spread across her face, and Maya's heart raced at the prospect of an introduction. Maya, so glad you could join us," Claire said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I hope you're enjoying the party." "Thank you, Claire. It's quite beautiful," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the discomfort clawing at her insides. She attempted to engage Claire in conversation, but the socialite's gaze flickered past her, scanning the room for more important guests. "Make sure to try the hors d'oeuvres," Claire suggested dismissively, her smile tightening. "They're catered by the finest in the city." With that, she turned away, leaving Maya standing alone, feeling like a ghost in a room full of vibrant life. The laughter and chatter around her felt distant, as if she were watching a scene unfold from behind a glass wall. Maya's heart raced as she contemplated her next move. She was proud of her heritage and her accomplishments as an artist, but nights like these often felt like an uphill battle against a tide of prejudice. It stung to be treated as an afterthought, a token presence amidst the elite. She glanced around the room, hoping to spot Marcus, but he was still delayed in traffic. As the evening wore on, Maya moved from group to group, attempting to engage with the guests. However, each interaction felt strained, the subtle undertones of prejudice simmering just beneath the surface. She overheard snippets of conversation that made her skin crawl. How could she afford that dress? One woman whispered to her friend, who nodded in agreement, their laughter ringing hollow. Maya's heart sank further when she overheard a man's voice, unmistakably James Carter, a close friend of Claire's and a prominent businessman. "Look at her," he said, his tone mocking. "She's out of place, don't you think? An artist trying to mingle with the elite. It's almost comical." The laughter that followed felt like a punch to her gut, and Maya's cheeks flushed with humiliation. Feeling overwhelmed, she stepped away from the crowd, her mind racing. She needed air, a moment of solitude to remind herself of who she was beyond the judgments of others. She slipped through the double doors that led to the balcony, the cool night air embracing her like a long-lost friend. Leaning against the railing, she looked out over the city, the lights twinkling like stars scattered across the dark canvas of the night sky. "What is wrong with people?" she muttered under her breath, allowing the tension to melt away for a moment. The city below was alive, a contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. Maya took a moment to collect her thoughts, reminding herself of her worth, her talents, and the love she shared with Marcus. Just then, she heard footsteps behind her. Maya, a familiar voice called out, and she turned to see Sarah Mitchell, her closest friend, approaching with a concerned expression. I saw you slip away. Are you okay? Maya forced a smile, grateful for her friend's presence. I'm fine, just needed a breather. It's a lot in there. Sarah leaned against the railing beside her, gazing out at the city. I can imagine. These parties can be so superficial. You know they don't define you, right? I know, Maya replied, her voice tinged with frustration. But it's hard not to feel like an outsider when everyone treats you like one. It feels like no matter what I do, I'll always be judged by the color of my skin. Sarah sighed, her expression softening. You're incredible, Maya. Your art speaks volumes, and you have so much to offer. Don't let their ignorance dim your light. Maya appreciated Sarah's support, but the sting of James's words lingered in her mind. It's just hard, you know? I thought I could handle it, but moments like these remind me of how far we still have to go. Before Sarah could respond, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses drifted from inside, pulling Maya's attention back to the party. She could see Claire and James, engaged in conversation, their expressions animated. The sense of belonging felt like a distant dream, slipping further away. Let's go back inside, Sarah suggested, nudging Maya gently. You have Marcus to lean on, right? He'll be here soon. Maya nodded, feeling a flicker of hope at the thought of her husband's arrival. Marcus always had a way of making her feel seen and valued, even in the midst of ignorance. You're right. Let's go. As they re-entered the party, Maya felt a mix of trepidation and anticipation. She scanned the room for Marcus, hoping to find solace in his presence. The night was far from over, and she was determined not to let the prejudices of others define her evening. With each step, she reminded herself of her strength, her resilience. No matter what was said or done, she would rise above the whispers, the judgment, and the condescension. Maya Thompson was more than just an artist. She was a force of nature, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Maya stood on the balcony, the cool night air wrapping around her like a comforting shawl, but the sting of humiliation still lingered in her heart. She leaned against the ornate railing, gazing out at the glittering skyline of New York City, the lights twinkling like stars fallen to earth. The laughter and chatter from inside the lavish party faded into a dull murmur, a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling within her. The world outside seemed so alive, yet she felt utterly isolated, a mere ghost in this opulent space filled with people who viewed her as an outsider. The sound of footsteps broke her reverie, and she turned to see Sarah, her closest friend, making her way toward her. Dressed in a stunning emerald gown that accentuated her figure, Sarah's presence was a breath of fresh air. Maya, she said softly, concern etched across her features. I could feel the tension from inside. Are you okay? Maya forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm fine, just taking a moment. She hesitated, then let out a shaky breath. It's just hard, you know? Being here, feeling like I don't belong. Sarah stepped closer, leaning against the railing beside her. You do belong, Maya. You are so talented and beautiful. It's their loss if they can't see that. But they do see me, Maya replied, her voice thick with emotion. They just choose to see the color of my skin instead of who I am. It's exhausting, Sarah. I just wanted tonight to be different. With a sigh, Sarah placed a comforting hand on Maya's shoulder. You're strong, and you know that. You've faced so much already. This is just one night, and you can't let them diminish your worth. Remember why you're here. Maya's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I'm here because Marcus wanted to show me off to his friends, to prove that we're part of this world. But all I feel is their disdain. You're not just a trophy, Maya. You're his partner, an incredible artist with a voice that deserves to be heard, Sarah emphasized, her tone firm. You shouldn't have to hide who you are for anyone. You have every right to be here. Maya nodded, feeling a flicker of courage ignite within her. You're right. I can't let their prejudice define my experience tonight. I have to be true to myself. Exactly. You are Maya Thompson, and you deserve respect, Sarah encouraged, her voice rising with enthusiasm. And just think, they don't know the real you. They're missing out. Taking a deep breath, Maya allowed Sarah's words to sink in. Thank you, Sarah. I needed this. Any time, Sarah replied, squeezing her shoulder before glancing back toward the party. Let's go back inside together. Show them what they're missing. As they turned to re-enter the party, Maya felt a renewed sense of determination. She would no longer shrink into the shadows. She would stand tall and proud, even in the face of disdain. Inside, the atmosphere felt heavier than before. Claire and James were deep in conversation, their voices dripping with condescension. Maya tried to focus on the elegant decor, the glimmering chandeliers, and the lavish spread of hors d'oeuvres, but their words cut through her like shards of glass. Honestly, I don't understand why they even attempt to mingle with us, Claire said, her tone dismissive. They should stick to their own kind. It's just uncomfortable. James chuckled, a low, mocking sound. I completely agree. It's like watching a fish out of water. You can't help but feel sorry for them. Maya's heart sank as she exchanged a glance with Sarah, who looked equally appalled. The two women stood at the edge of the room, listening as the conversation turned crueler. At least they know their place, Claire continued, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Maya. But some just refused to accept it. Maya felt her stomach churn. She wanted to confront Claire, to call out her elitism and prejudice, yet the words stuck in her throat. She took a step back, her heart racing as she fought against the urge to flee the room. Let's get some fresh air, Sarah suggested, sensing Maya's distress. You don't need to hear this. But before they could retreat, Marcus emerged from the crowd, his presence instantly commanding attention. He was dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his confidence radiating through the room. Maya's heart swelled at the sight of him, but the tension in the air was palpable. Marcus, Claire exclaimed, her tone shifting to one of feigned warmth. We were just talking about you. Come, join us. Marcus offered a polite smile, but didn't miss the undercurrent of disdain in Claire's voice. I appreciate the invitation, Claire, but I'm looking for my wife. His gaze swept the room until it landed on Maya, and a warmth enveloped her as he approached. There you are, he said, his voice low and soothing. I was beginning to worry. Maya felt a rush of relief and love wash over her as he took her hand. I'm okay, just listening to the party's soundtrack, she replied, trying to keep her tone light. Marcus's brow furrowed slightly as he sensed her unease. Everything all right? Before she could respond, Claire interjected, a false cheeriness in her voice. Oh, we were just discussing the importance of knowing one's place in high society, Marcus. You must have some thoughts on that. Maya's heart sank further. She wanted to defend herself, to defend them, but the words seemed to escape her. Instead, Marcus turned to Claire, his expression shifting to one of cool detachment. Knowing one's place, he echoed, his voice steady. I believe everyone has a rightful place in this world, regardless of their background or skin color. It's not about fitting into someone else's expectations. The room fell silent, the atmosphere thick with tension as the guests picked up on the challenge in Marcus's voice. Claire's smile faltered for a brief moment before she recovered, attempting to regain control of the conversation. Ah, Marcus, you're always so idealistic, she replied, her tone dripping with condescension. But the reality is, not everyone is meant for the same circles. Maya felt the urge to interject, to defend herself and Marcus, but she remained quiet, her heart pounding in her chest. Perhaps, Marcus said, his gaze unwavering, but I believe it's those very circles that need to change. Prejudice has no place in our society. Maya's heart soared at his words, her admiration for him deepening. She could feel the tension thickening around them, a palpable shift in the atmosphere as guests exchanged uncertain glances. As the conversation continued, Maya felt emboldened by Marcus's presence, but still, she grappled with the weight of the prejudiced remarks echoing in her mind. She understood that this night was far from over, and the battle for respect would soon come to a head. Taking a deep breath, she prepared herself for whatever lay ahead, determined to reclaim her narrative and stand alongside the man she loved. Together, they would face the judgmental gazes, the snickers, and the disdain, proving that their love was more powerful than any prejudice that sought to tear them apart. The dinner table glittered with exquisite china and crystal, reflecting the soft glow of the chandeliers overhead. Maya sat at a round table adorned with a floral centerpiece that seemed to mock her discomfort. As the clinking of forks and the hum of conversation swirled around her, she felt increasingly isolated, a spectator in a world that deemed her inferior. The guests, dressed in designer outfits and dripping with jewels, exchanged stories about their latest vacations in the Hamptons and their impressive portfolios. Maya's heart sank with each superficial anecdote. Across the table, Claire Anderson, the hostess, laughed a little too loudly at one of James Carter's jokes, leaning in to share some insider gossip about another socialite's recent scandal. Maya's skin prickled at the way they spoke, as if discussing the lives of people outside their privileged bubble was merely entertainment. She couldn't help but feel like an outsider, an uninvited guest in a world that had no space for her. "Did you hear about Candace's new yacht? Apparently, it's equipped with a helipad," Claire exclaimed, her voice dripping with condescension. The table erupted into laughter, a sound that felt like nails on a chalkboard to Maya. She forced a smile, her grip tightening around her wine glass as she took a slow sip, hoping to drown out the noise. "Can you believe the nerve of some people?" James added, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for someone to further ridicule. "I mean, who needs a yacht anyway? Just another way to flaunt their wealth." He leaned back, a self-satisfied grin plastered on his face, reveling in the applause of his peers. Maya felt her stomach churn. She had always been proud of her hard work and the art she created. Yet here she was, reduced to a mere prop in someone else's story. The subtle glances and whispers, the way they looked through her rather than at her, weighed heavily on her spirit. She longed for Marcus to arrive, his presence always a balm to her frayed nerves. As if summoned by her thoughts, the doors to the grand dining room swung open, and Marcus strode in with an air of confidence that turned heads. He wore a tailored suit that accentuated his tall, athletic frame, and his smile radiated warmth. Maya's heart lifted as he scanned the room and locked eyes with her, a silent beacon of support amidst the storm of judgment surrounding her. "Sorry I'm late," he said, making his way to her side, his voice low and reassuring. "Traffic was a nightmare." "You look amazing," Maya whispered, her spirit brightening. "Thanks. But you look even better," he replied, leaning down to place a soft kiss on her cheek. The warmth of his affection was a stark contrast to the icy atmosphere at the table. "Did you see how they were treating me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the insecurity creeping back. Marcus's expression shifted, a flicker of anger crossing his face. "I did. But you know they don't matter, right? You're incredible just as you are." Maya nodded, though her heart still raced with anxiety. As Marcus took his seat beside her, she felt a slight shift in the dynamics at the table. The guests exchanged glances, their demeanor changing as they tried to assess this new arrival. Maya could sense the undercurrent of discomfort ripple through the group. Marcus was a man of influence, and his presence carried weight. "Marcus, how's the new venture going?" Claire asked, her voice laced with a forced cheerfulness. "It's going well. Thanks for asking," Marcus replied, his tone cordial yet firm. "We're making strides in sustainable technology, something I believe is crucial for the future." Maya watched as the conversation teetered between genuine interest and thinly veiled skepticism. James leaned back, crossing his arms. "Sustainable technology? Sounds like a nice buzzword. I guess it's the fashionable thing to do these days, isn't it?" A tense silence followed his comment, and Maya could feel the weight of judgment in the air. Marcus's jaw clenched, but he remained composed. "It's more than just a trend, James. It's about responsibility, something I think we should all be concerned about." Claire feigned interest, but Maya could see the flicker of disdain in her eyes. "Well, it's certainly admirable. But I suppose some people just prefer to enjoy their yachts without worrying about what's happening in the world." Maya's heart raced at the condescension woven into Claire's words. The implications were clear. Claire was asserting her superiority, and Maya was painfully aware of the target painted on her back. The conversation continued, and as the dishes were served, Maya felt herself shrinking into her seat, her appetite lost amidst the suffocating atmosphere. "Tell me, Maya," Claire began, her voice dripping with a false sweetness that made Maya's skin crawl. "What do you do for fun? I imagine painting is a bit solitary, wouldn't you say?" Maya's breath caught in her throat, the question laced with undercurrents of mockery. She glanced at Marcus, who was watching her intently, a silent reminder of the strength within her. Actually, I find great joy in creating art. It's a way to express my experiences and connect with others on a deeper level, she replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies swirling in her stomach. Claire raised an eyebrow. Really? That's interesting. The way she said it made Maya feel as though Claire was scrutinizing her, as if her passion was merely a novelty rather than something worthy of respect. Just as the conversation reached an uncomfortable lull, Claire leaned forward, her eyes glinting with mischief. I must say, Marcus, you've certainly outdone yourself. Maya is quite unique, isn't she? Maya's heart raced at the implication behind Claire's words, and she felt a familiar heat rise to her cheeks. Before she could respond, Marcus's expression darkened, and he leaned forward, his voice low but forceful. Maya is extraordinary in ways that you couldn't begin to understand, Claire. Her talent speaks volumes, and I suggest you take a moment to appreciate the depth of her artistry instead of reducing it to a mere label. Maya's breath hitched. She had expected Marcus to defend her, but the passion in his voice surprised her. The murmurs around the table quieted, as guests exchanged wary glances. Maya felt a swell of pride mixed with anxiety. Her husband was standing up for her, but the tension in the air crackled like static electricity. Claire, momentarily taken aback, quickly regained her composure. Oh, I didn't mean to offend. I just thought. You thought wrong, Marcus interrupted, his gaze unwavering. Maya may be different from your circle, but that difference is precisely what makes her remarkable. You should think twice before making assumptions based on superficial judgments. Maya's heart swelled with gratitude and admiration as she watched Marcus defend her with such conviction. But alongside that warmth came a flicker of fear. What would the repercussions be for him? Would this evening take a turn for the worse? As her thoughts raced, she remained silent, a storm of emotions swirling within her. She could feel the weight of the room's attention bearing down on her. The atmosphere had shifted dramatically. In that moment, Maya knew that the path forward would be anything but easy, but with Marcus by her side, she felt ready to face whatever was to come. Maya Thompson sat at the elegantly set dinner table, the glimmer of crystal and gold surrounding her contrasting sharply with the hollow conversations that filled the air. The clinking of forks against fine china was a dissonant soundtrack to her thoughts, a symphony of privilege that drowned out her voice. She tried to engage in light banter about the latest art exhibitions, but her words seemed to evaporate, lost amidst the chuckles and anecdotes exchanged by the other guests. With every passing moment, she could feel the walls of exclusion closing around her, tightening her chest with a familiar weight. Can you believe the audacity of that artist who thinks her work deserves to be in a gallery? Claire Anderson's voice cut through the din, her tone dripping with disdain. Maya's heart sank further as she recognized the subject of Claire's derision, an artist of color whose work was finally gaining recognition. It was a subtle jab, but one that left a bitter taste in Maya's mouth. Right? It's not like her pieces are anything groundbreaking, James Carter chimed in, his smirk barely concealed. Maya's fingers tightened around her wine glass, the cold stem grounding her in reality. She glanced at Sarah, who was seated a few chairs down, her brow furrowed in concern. Maya offered a small, reassuring smile, though inside, she felt a storm brewing. Just then, the grand double doors swung open, and Marcus entered the room. He cast a warm smile toward Maya, his presence like a ray of sunshine breaking through the gray clouds that had gathered over the evening. Dressed sharply in a tailored suit, he exuded confidence, an air of unwavering strength that both comforted and invigorated her. Maya watched as he made his way toward her, the world around her fading momentarily as their eyes locked. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning down to kiss her on the cheek. It was a simple gesture, yet it sent a ripple of energy through her, igniting a flicker of hope. "How's it going?" "Just the usual," Maya replied, her voice low, hoping to keep their moment private amidst the cacophony of the party. "You know how they can be." Marcus's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of understanding passing between them. He nodded, his gaze sweeping over the guests who had been so quick to dismiss Maya. A subtle tension hung in the air, and Maya could sense that something was about to change. As dinner progressed, the conversation began to swirl around them like a rising tide, the chatter growing louder, more animated. Maya felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as Marcus stood to offer a toast. He cleared his throat, commanding attention with an effortless authority that made Maya's heart swell with pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady and resonant, "I'd like to take a moment to say a few words." The room quieted, all eyes drawn to him. "Tonight, we celebrate not just the achievements we've made in our respective fields, but also the people who inspire us to rise above. Love and acceptance are powerful forces that can unite us, regardless of our backgrounds." Maya leaned in closer, her breath caught in her throat. The words he spoke felt like a balm to her wounded spirit, each syllable imbued with truth. She could see the guests shifting in their seats, some rolling their eyes, while others leaned forward, intrigued. "I stand here beside my wife, Maya Thompson," Marcus continued, his gaze unwavering. "And I want to share something about her that many of you may not know. Maya is an incredibly talented artist whose work speaks to the heart of our society. Her perspective is one that deserves to be heard, one that challenges us to reflect on our own biases and prejudices." Maya felt a flush creep up her cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. This was the moment she had longed for, yet feared all at once. The room held its breath, and she could sense the shift in energy as Marcus's words resonated with the guests, some visibly taken aback. "Too often, we allow superficial judgments to cloud our perception of others," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. "It's easy to dismiss what we don't understand, but true growth comes from embracing diversity, from celebrating our differences rather than shunning them. We should strive to create spaces where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their skin color or background." The murmurs around the table began to rise, a mixture of surprise and discomfort as Marcus laid bare the unspoken truths that lingered in the air. Claire shifted in her seat, her expression darkening as she prepared to respond. As the toast came to a close, Maya felt a swell of emotion welling up inside her. She was overwhelmed by Marcus's unwavering support, the way he had chosen to elevate her in front of a crowd that had, moments ago, made her feel invisible. The applause that followed felt like a distant echo, drowned out by the pounding of her heart. "Thank you all for listening," Marcus concluded, his eyes scanning the room. "Let's remember that love and acceptance are not just words. They are actions we must embody every day." Claire, recovering from the surprise of Marcus's speech, quickly attempted to regain control of the narrative. "That was quite a speech, Marcus," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But surely, we can't allow ourselves to be swayed by sentimentality. After all, this is a business gathering, not a charity event." Marcus's brow furrowed slightly, and Maya could see the tension building within him. "With all due respect, Claire, this is precisely the type of conversation we need to have. Business doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's intertwined with our society, our values, and how we treat one another." The other guests exchanged glances, some nodding hesitantly, while others looked on in disbelief. Maya held her breath, watching as Marcus stood his ground, challenging the very foundation of the elitism that had permeated the evening. Claire's lips pursed, and she straightened in her chair, a defensive posture that Maya recognized all too well. "I don't think this is the time or place to delve into social issues, Marcus. We're here to network and celebrate our successes. Then perhaps we should reevaluate what success truly means." Marcus shot back, his voice unwavering. "Is it simply financial gain? Or does it also encompass our responsibility to uplift those around us, to foster an environment where everyone can thrive?" Maya felt a rush of adrenaline as the tension escalated. This was the moment she had feared but also hoped for, the confrontation that could redefine the evening. She watched, captivated, as Marcus continued to challenge Claire's established views. The energy shifted palpably, the guests slowly beginning to murmur amongst themselves, their perceptions of Maya and Marcus evolving in real time. Maya's heart raced as she processed the scene unfolding before her. She had entered this party feeling small and invisible, but now, With the strength of Marcus's words, she felt empowered. She realized that their love story was not just about her or Marcus. It was about the fight against prejudice, the resilience to stand firm in the face of adversity. As the murmurs grew louder, Maya caught snippets of conversations around the table, some guests reflecting on their own biases, others questioning Claire's stance. She felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, the night could transform into something meaningful, something profound. Marcus turned to Maya, his eyes filled with determination and love. In that moment, she understood that this was not just about a party. It was about the very essence of who they were as a couple, and the power they held to inspire change, to challenge the status quo. Together, they stood at the precipice of a new beginning, and Maya felt ready to embrace whatever came next. As the evening wore on, a subtle shift rippled through the elegant gathering. Guests, who had previously cast sidelong glances at Maya, began to approach her with hesitant smiles. The air was thick with a mixture of uncertainty and a desire for reconciliation. It seemed that Marcus's heartfelt toast had sparked something in the hearts of the attendees, prompting them to reconsider their earlier behavior. Maya stood by the ornate bar, her fingers delicately tracing the rim of her glass. She watched as Claire Anderson, the party's host, flitted about with a forced smile, desperately trying to regain control of the evening's narrative. The tension had ebbed slightly, but the undertones of prejudice still lingered. It was as if the room had collectively taken a breath, unsure of how to proceed. "Hi there." A woman with auburn hair approached Maya, her demeanor noticeably softer now. "I wanted to say I'm sorry for how things were earlier. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable." Maya was taken aback, her heart racing at the unexpected apology. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady but guarded. It's been a challenging night." "I can't imagine," the woman said, her eyes filled with genuine empathy. "Honestly, I didn't realize how ignorant we could be. It's embarrassing to think about it now." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "Claire can be quite exclusive, if you know what I mean." Maya nodded, appreciating the woman's honesty. "It's easy to get lost in that mindset, I suppose." Just then, another guest, a tall man in a tailored suit, approached them. He extended his hand to Maya, his expression earnest. "I'm Thomas. I just wanted to echo what Sarah said. I didn't know you were Marcus's wife. I feel ashamed of how I reacted earlier." "It's not right." Maya smiled, a warmth spreading in her chest, though she remained wary. "Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that. Can I get you another drink?" he offered, gesturing to the bar. "Let's celebrate the fact that you're here with us tonight." Before she could respond, Claire, sensing her grip on the party slipping, strutted over with an air of feigned nonchalance. "Maya, darling, isn't it time you introduced us to your husband? I'd love to hear more about your unique journey." Her tone dripped with condescension, a desperate attempt to regain her footing in the social hierarchy. Maya felt a surge of indignation, but held her composure. "Marcus is right over there," she said, motioning towards her husband, who was engaged in a lively conversation with another guest. "I'm sure he would love to share our story." Of course," Claire replied, her smile tightening. "I just thought it would be nice for everyone to hear it from you, considering the circumstances." Maya exchanged a glance with Sarah, who stood nearby, offering her silent support. It was clear that Claire was attempting to sidestep the fallout from Marcus's earlier remarks, and Maya refused to be part of her charade. "Perhaps it's better if you ask him directly," Maya said, her voice steady. "After all, it's his perspective that matters most in this situation." Claire's smile faltered for a brief moment, revealing her irritation, but she quickly masked it. "Well, I suppose we should all hear from him then. Would you excuse me?" She turned on her heel, her posture rigid as she stalked away. As the night progressed, more guests began to approach Maya, each with their own version of an apology. A couple who had previously ignored her now stood before her, their expressions sheepish. "Maya, we didn't mean to come off as rude. It was thoughtless of us," one of them said, shifting nervously. "We'd love to hear more about your artwork." Maya felt a mix of emotions, relief that they were willing to acknowledge their mistakes, yet skepticism about their sincerity. "Thank you," she replied. "I appreciate your willingness to talk. Honestly, we've been in this bubble for too long," the woman continued. It's time to change the way we think. We want to learn. Maya smiled, but the weight of the evening still lingered on her shoulders. It's a journey we all must take, she said softly. Understanding comes from listening, and listening is a skill many don't practice enough. Meanwhile, Marcus had noticed the shifting dynamics and made his way across the room, his presence commanding yet warm. He approached Maya, wrapping an arm around her shoulder and leaning down to kiss her temple. "How's it going, love?" he asked, his voice low and comforting. "Better, I think," Maya replied, glancing around at the guests who were now engaging with her. "I'm surprised by how many people are willing to apologize." Marcus chuckled softly, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. They're realizing that their ignorance was on display. "I think your strength has opened their eyes." Just then Claire, feeling cornered, returned, her face flushed. "Marcus," she called out, her voice laced with a strained cheerfulness. "Can we talk for a moment?" "Sure," he replied, his expression curious but cautious. Maya watched as they stepped aside, their conversation becoming more serious as Claire gestured animatedly. "I can't believe she's trying to regain control," Sarah said softly beside Maya. "She's rattled." "Good," Maya replied, her heart racing with a mix of apprehension and hope. "She should be." The atmosphere shifted as more guests began to gather, drawn in by the tension between Marcus and Claire. Marcus's voice rose slightly, and Maya could hear snippets of their conversation. "I find it fascinating," Marcus said, his tone calm yet firm, "that you can stand there and pretend that your comments earlier didn't have weight. You've spent the entire evening belittling people, and now that the spotlight is on you, you want to play the victim?" Claire's expression darkened, and Maya could see the tension tightening in her jaw. "I don't appreciate your tone. This is not how a civilized discussion should go." "Civilized discussions require honesty, Claire," Marcus replied, his eyes unwavering. "You need to confront your own biases before you can lead this community." The guests around them were silent, captivated by the confrontation unfolding. Maya stood a little taller, emboldened by her husband's fierce defense. She had always known Marcus had a strong sense of justice, but seeing him challenge the elitist attitudes head-on filled her with pride. As the conversation continued, more guests chimed in, some offering their own experiences of prejudice, while others began to question the elitist attitudes that had dominated the evening. Maya could feel a shift in the atmosphere, an awakening of sorts, as people began to connect the dots between their actions and the impact they had on others. "Maybe it's time we all reflect on how we treat those who are different from us," a woman from the back of the crowd called out, her voice steady. "We need to be held accountable." Maya's heart swelled at the sound of solidarity. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for her, but for everyone in that room. The facade of exclusivity began to crumble, and in its place, a sense of community started to take root. Marcus glanced at Maya, a look of triumph on his face. She could see the fire in his eyes, a determination to foster change not just for them, but for future generations. The night had transformed into something far more significant than just a party. It was a catalyst for conversation, understanding, and growth. As people began to share stories, laughter mixed with tears, and Maya realized that this was the true essence of connection. In that moment, she felt seen and valued, not just as Marcus's wife, but as Maya Thompson, an artist, a woman of color, and a voice for change. The evening was no longer a tale of humiliation, but one of resilience, hope, and the power of love to bridge divides. As the discussions continued, Maya took a deep breath, her heart swelling with gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this pivotal moment. She knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to walk it alongside Marcus, hand in hand, forging a new narrative where respect and empathy prevailed. The atmosphere in the grand ballroom of Claire Anderson's mansion had shifted dramatically, yet an undercurrent of tension still lingered like an uninvited guest. Maya Thompson stood near the edge of the gathering, her heart racing as she absorbed the charged energy of the crowd. She felt the weight of judgment in the air, but now, emboldened by Marcus's earlier toast, she was ready to confront the night head-on. Just as Maya gathered her thoughts, the heavy doors of the ballroom swung open once more, and a woman stepped inside, her presence commanding immediate attention. Dressed in a tailored suit that exuded sophistication, She was a striking figure, her camera swinging from her neck. Maya recognized her immediately as Ava Sinclair, a well-known journalist famed for her incisive reporting on social issues and the elitist circles of New York City. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare," Ava announced, her voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. The guests turned, some with curiosity, others with apprehension. Claire's expression soured. She clearly recognized the journalist and was not pleased with her arrival. "Maya, darling, come here," Claire called out, trying to reclaim the center stage. "I'd like you to meet Ava Sinclair. She's been following the social scene for a feature piece." The way Claire said "piece" dripped with condescension, as if she were introducing a lesser creature to a revered guest. Maya took a deep breath, allowing herself to be swept toward Ava. "It's a pleasure to meet you," she said, extending her hand. Ava shook it firmly, her gaze flickering over Maya's face with a mix of sympathy and recognition of the struggle that lay beneath her poised exterior. "Likewise, Maya. I've heard quite a bit about you, especially from your husband. He speaks very highly of your work." Maya felt a warmth spread in her chest at Ava's words. "Thank you. Marcus is my biggest supporter." Ava nodded, her expression shifting as she turned her attention back to the crowd. "I must say, Claire, your gatherings have always fascinated me. They often serve as a microcosm of the elite in this city." Claire's smile was tight, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "Oh, we do try to maintain a certain standard, don't we, James?" she called over her shoulder, beckoning a nearby businessman who had been trying to keep his distance from the unfolding drama. "Certainly," James Carter replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm always fascinated by how some people manage to slip through the cracks of our refined society." Maya's heart sank at his words, but she felt Ava's sharp gaze turn toward him, a flicker of indignation visible in her expression. "And what do you mean by that, James? Are you suggesting that some of us are unworthy of being here?" "Just stating facts," James replied dismissively, but the tension in the room was palpable. Ava stepped closer to Maya, her voice lowering so only they could hear. "Don't worry. I've been taking notes. This evening may be more revealing than anyone anticipated." There was a glint of determination in Ava's eyes, and Maya felt a surge of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, the truth would be brought to light. As the evening progressed, Ava moved through the crowd, her camera capturing moments, but it was the conversation she engaged in that truly stirred the pot. She approached Claire, who was now trying to regain her composure after Marcus's previous challenge. "Claire, you've hosted so many events like this, but I wonder, how often do you reflect on the true inclusivity of your circle?" Ava asked pointedly. Claire's smile faltered, her arrogance battling with the unexpected scrutiny. "Inclusivity is a subjective term, Ava. We invite those who enhance the experience," she replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. "Enhance," Ava repeated, her tone sharp. "Isn't that just a euphemism for maintaining a certain image? Perhaps it's time to question who gets to be seen as enhancing and who gets pushed aside." The guests around them shifted uncomfortably, and Maya, standing at a distance, felt her heart race. Ava's words cut through the atmosphere like a knife, exposing the raw nerve of elitism that had dictated the evening thus far. "Are you implying that I discriminate?" Claire responded, her voice rising slightly in indignation. "I'm merely curating an environment that reflects sophistication." "Curating or controlling?" Ava countered, her voice steady and unwavering. "It seems to me that you've cultivated an echo chamber rather than a community. What happens when the voices of those you deem lesser are silenced?" Maya watched as Claire's facade began to crack, her carefully constructed world teetering on the edge of exposure. The murmurs of the guests swelled, curiosity and discomfort mingling in the air. Then, as if sensing the tide turning, Ava turned her gaze to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important to remember that true sophistication lies in understanding and embracing diversity. This party, while lavish, should celebrate all voices, not just the privileged few." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, while others seemed to awaken from a trance, their eyes settling on Maya with a newfound respect. Maya, emboldened by the shift in the atmosphere, stepped forward. "Ava is right. We need to acknowledge our biases and the way we treat one another. It's not just about appearances or status, but about humanity and respect. We all deserve to be seen. Claire's face flushed crimson as she looked around, her social armor crumbling. I never intended to offend anyone, she stammered, though her voice lacked conviction. Maya, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. One of the guests, a woman named Linda, spoke up. I didn't realize how my comments might have sounded. It wasn't fair. Maya felt a rush of mixed emotions. She had anticipated rejection, yet here was an olive branch, however small. Thank you, Linda. It means a lot to hear that. As the conversations around the room began to shift toward understanding, Claire realized her grip on the narrative was slipping. This is ridiculous, she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. You're all overreacting. This is just how the world works. But the guests were no longer swayed by her arguments. They were beginning to see through the veil of elitism she had constructed. Ava, sensing the climax of the evening, turned back to the crowd. Perhaps it's time to reflect on what true acceptance means. We can either choose to grow or remain stagnant in our prejudices. The choice is ours. Maya felt a swell of pride at Ava's words, and she glanced at Marcus, whose eyes sparkled with admiration for her and the journalist standing beside her. As the night drew to a close, Claire stood isolated, her former allies distancing themselves from her, their eyes now open to the truths that had been obscured. Maya and Marcus exchanged a knowing glance, understanding that their shared journey had not only transformed their lives, but had also begun to ripple through the lives of those around them. Hand in hand, they made their way toward the exit, leaving behind the remnants of an evening that had begun with prejudice, but ended with empowerment. The night had been a testament to love, courage, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. As they stepped into the cool New York air, Maya felt lighter, knowing that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead.